Hey friends, this is Rob again, and I am going to take you through a second version of the interpersonal relationships capability. Because interpersonal relationships are just such a critical aspect of so many of the environments that we navigate, I wanted to do a deeper dive into all the different ways that you could use context to help you explore something. In this particular example, I want to pretend that we are a family. Maybe you're the head of the family, mom or a dad, and you're thinking about raising your kids in a certain way. We'll say you're going to want to be an integral family. You want to be integral parents. So I've got a context that I've outlined with two children, and I have said some things about their background and temperament, about all the family members, and we'll look at some dilemmas that they're facing as we go. I've actually used context in exactly this way for my own family, where, well, let me just take you through it. So, how would we go about this? Well, we know we're going to have this environment where we want this context to it's going to be a long-term uh, container for the way we're going to use context. So that's naturally where we go for a project. So I will open up the projects thing. I will create a project. I will call it the Thompson family. And we now have the Thompson family project. Now, I'm going to add a whole bunch of context here. 2 paragraphs. Wouldn't take long to create if it was your family or a client. And what I'm really saying here is that I'm just giving it a little bit of background. Thompson family consists of 2 parents, Sarah and David, and 2 children, Emma and Jack. I then go through and describe a bit about their temperament, their Enneagram type, some of their OCAN characteristics, their Big Five personality characteristics. And I then say a little bit about what the goals are of the family. They want to raise their kids in a holistic, multi-dimensional way. They want to raise them integrally. Okay. So I added that in. That is going to be my high level context for the whole project, no matter what I do. As usual, I could add section recommendations here, or I could start with a blank section. Let's just start with a blank section. And for right now, I often start a project this way. I just say introduction. Until I know exactly where I'm going to go with something, sometimes I just start in a very simple way. All right, introduction. And let's get started. We will create our first framework. Now, in this particular example, I may actually build a bit of a framework nest out of it. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's start with a lens that might be a little bit counterintuitive to use, but I think might be kind of interesting in this example, which is the organization summary. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. It's in business and strategy, but it is an organization. A family is an organization. So I'm going to look at this. And as usual, you can see I expanded the context. I have all my original context from the project. The framework section is just called introduction, so I'm not going to add anything there. And actually, I'm not going to add anything here either because I think I've given it enough information to do a nice summary for the family. And let's see what happens. When you use context, you're often thinking a little bit ahead and saying, okay, so I now have this summary lens. I put it into 4 quadrants. It's a really lovely overview of the family and the information that I provided. It's one of the reasons I chose this framework. So, mission and purpose of the organization. And here I could, if I wanted, really quickly just say family. And here I could update this family. All right. Here I will say behavior, just change a couple of the titles to adapt it to my use. Family, mission, and purpose. Their mission and purpose is to revolve around a holistic, multi-dimensional growth for both children, nurturing their physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being, so on and so forth. Parents Sarah and David aim to balance inner development with external successes, fostering compassion, mindfulness, and empathy in a warm and supportive home environment. It's a really great way to summarize what the family is attempting to do. Talks about the leadership of the family and their worldview and how they split up their their roles and leadership of the family, the values, communication, so on and so forth. So as a first step, it actually is a really nice way to summarize this particular um, this family's environment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to then nest a framework here in mission and purpose. And the one I'm going to pick this time is an ikigai, the highest purpose. And what I'm going to tell it, I'm going to go in here. And as you'll see, as I think I've shown you before, it inherits the context for this from the quadrant we were just in, from that box where we're nesting this framework. It inherits that context. There's a reason we do it that way, because it really allows you to very quickly build lenses with nested context. It's a pretty powerful feature. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to tell it to build the Thompson family's ikigai. I really want to make sure it focuses on the Thompson family's ikigai as opposed to a organizational ikigai or something else. And we'll see what it does. There's things I like about this framework when I'm looking at things like purpose. So a couple of things I'll show you. Number one, you can see that it nested this, right? Just as expected. I could go back to family summary and is now nested inside of this box inside of the upper left quadrant. And that would get me there as well. So as soon as I click that, I'll get right down to this ikigai. And then I also have, it's 4 quadrants, but it's different than an interval 4 quadrants. This is looking at, you in the world and the contribution and desire. Still a bit of interior and exterior flavor to these things. What you love. So what family activities do we most enjoy together? This is one aspect of an ikigai. And what hobbies or activities make us lose track of time? Which moments together feel most fulfilling? What traditions or routine do we look forward to as a family? Okay, very cool. What you're good at? What are our family strengths? Understanding our collective talents and skills can help us leverage them towards our mission. Okay, neat. So we might want to do some further exploration there. In the lower left, how can we contribute to our community? And this is what the world needs. Basically, how do we show up as a family with the world? What you can be paid for, that's not quite right. So I'd probably want to regenerate this maybe with a little bit different description here, which we could certainly do. But for the time being and purpose of this demo, I will leave that alone. But I will nest another one here on the collective talents and strengths. And I might just say something like, help me understand our collective talents and skills. All right, I'll put it into a table this time. It did something weird here, so I'm going to recreate this. I can keep it in a table, but I'm actually going to put it into a build your own prompt to experiment to see whether I pull away some of that summarize framework and I just say, hey, do this instead. Okay, I still don't like what it's doing here, but let's see if how the rest of it turned out. So here we get the Enneagram type for all the family members. We get the personality traits. We get the temperament. Right. We get the strengths that it's coming forward and the mission contribution. Okay. Not bad. And if I really didn't like this, I could come over here and I could just delete this column. Right. So we've built a little bit of a nest around these things. And I could come over here and tag this and say, okay, this is a key point, key insight, or maybe it's a leverage point that I want to look at. All right, we'll go back to our family summary at the very top level. And now let's go to this one here, communication and conflict. Effective communication is a cornerstone of the Thompson family dynamic. Here, I'm going to do a framework which is pretty cool. I'm going to do a personality type relationship interaction. I'm going to put it into a polarity. I'll take out this word here, communication and conflict. It's just a little bit of a holdover from the quadrant it was inheriting it from. And you can see what our context looks like. It has all the detail of our original project context, and then it is pulling some of the context from that lower left quadrant that we just nested from, saying effective communication is a cornerstone of the Thompson family dynamic. Conflicts arise. Okay. Yep. It's really about the family trying to have good interpersonal connections. And what we're looking at here with this framework of personality type relationship interaction is it's going to analyze two people's personality types and suggest how they might interact across several dimensions or embody different positive values, which is what I'm going to do here because I put it in a polarity. All right. And here it's given me an analysis of empathy, which is Sarah's strength, and analysis, which is David's strength, and the positive aspects of both in terms of the polar focus. Uh, Sarah's going to prioritize emotional connection and understanding and encourage open, non-judgmental expressions of feelings. David's going to approach discussions through logic and structured thinking, encouraging data-driven decision making and problem solving. Now, the risks for David or this pole in the family is a potential to become detached from others' emotions and may overlook emotional nuances. That is if this pole is neglecting the positives of this pole. And similarly, Sarah might have the risk to become over involved in others' problems and may avoid necessary confrontations to maintain harmony. So I could really do this as much as I want. I could add whatever polarities I wanted here between the family members. I could do a whole list of different polarities and seeing where these type interactions might create problematic situations or what have you. And if I found those, or if there's things I wanted to dig deeper, I could literally just nest a new framework and do things like problem solving, do things like perspective taking, and really explore it however I wanted. So extremely powerful in that way. In fact, we might do that, but let's first go back to our main level lens. And hopefully you can begin to see why I chose an organization summary as kind of a high level framework, because it becomes a very nice way to organize the overall relational analysis. Let's go to strategy and outcomes is obviously a bit of a business term. I don't think I would call it quite that, but let's call it family outcomes. Okay. And let's look at an adaptive cycle. Some of these lenses do get a little geeky, but we really want to give you the power to do things that, frankly, no other platforms do, to give you ways to think about things that are really pretty powerful in thinking about different contexts in full ways. So as usual, I'll just quickly check my context. Thompson family, there it is. Okay, enter a topic, challenge, or context. And it again pulls that context here from the quadrant we were just in, from the box we're nesting from. Strategy of the Thompson family includes a balanced approach to nurturing both personal development and external achievements. Okay, here with an adaptive cycle, maybe I'll introduce a problem for them. Maybe I'll start talking about, I'll pull one over here, a list that I have with a family, and the family is struggling with, my typing is famous for being not great. Okay, family struggling with parent-child conflict over responsibilities, disagreements. Okay, so now I've given it a little bit of context about a specific problem I'd like to put through an adaptive cycle. If you've never seen an adaptive cycle, well, you're about to. They're pretty cool. We actually, there's different ways you can visualize an adaptive cycle. We put it into just a straight table, and I'll show you how to use it. All right, so this is pretty cool. A lot of information here. An adaptive cycle is a way in which all natural systems go through starting in a sort of growth phase or a strength phase. And then what happens is gradually they stagnate, they come into a conservation phase or a stagnation phase, and then stagnation becomes overwhelming and there's a breakdown. And that goes down to here, this release or breakdown, and then it reorganizes, comes back into a reorganization phase, and it reorganizes, there's learning, et cetera, and then it goes back down to the growth and thriving phase. So if you can imagine like an infinity symbol, this is the flow. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's really powerful. Once you get familiar with this shape and how the energy flows in this kind of adaptive cycle, you will not be able to not see it. You'll see it everywhere. You'll see it in your diet. You'll see it in your workouts. You'll see it in a conflict you've got at work. You'll see it in just so many different situations where you'll notice that there's strength and thriving, and then there's a bit of stagnation, and then there's kind of a lockup, and then you've got some breakdown, and then you have to adapt, and you adapt and reorganize, and then you go back into a new growth cycle. So that's the general aspect of this lens, and I could do a whole thing on this lens just alone, but we'll stay with the Thompson family. So when the Thompson family is in its growth phase, when it's strong related to this issue, the parent-child conflict over responsibilities, you can see that they're encouraging the development of time management skills in their children to handle their duties more effectively. They're implementing educational initiatives that teach children importance of responsibility and accountability. They're doing skill building, giving them opportunities for leadership, so on and so forth. Okay. Um, as it becomes more routine, as it goes into the conservation or kind of maintenance phase, it is establishing routines for chores, setting clear expectations for responsibilities, long-term planning, monitoring whether the kids are meeting their responsibilities, balancing the workloads. But eventually, a lot of this stuff, the kids grow, life situations change, we get lazy with our systems, whatever, and then you get a breakdown. And now you get into recurrent arguments over undone chores, which cause emotional distress within the family, you feelings of frustration and resentment, school performance suffers, disagreements, etc. Right? And then as we go into this release, we go into come out of the release, we come into a reorganization phase, and we have to change our organizational model. We develop a chore rotation system, we introduce family meetings, we create peer accountability, play reward systems, etc. Now, as an integral parent myself, and having raised 3 kids, hopefully somewhat successfully, I know this chart really well. I know what it is like to constantly have to adapt to the cycle of change that is flowing energetically through the family, not just developmentally with the kids, but developmentally with the parents, and in terms of life conditions and frankly just stagnation that happens as you try something for a while and then you need to change it up. So again, there's a lot of ways that you could apply adaptive cycle lenses to various situations for this family. But what I'm showing is that you really have this powerful way to continue to think about and take perspectives and try to look at things in different ways. And frankly, kind of have what's actually happening modeled back to you. Like there's a way in which using context says to you, "Oh, I'm not crazy. Like this is actually there's a good rational reason why a lot of things are happening." That's often what's going on with the frameworks that you have access to here. It kind of confirms for you that there are good reasons why what is happening are occurring, and you're not alone. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to take you through. Maybe let me do a couple of others. We'll quickly do a stakeholder analysis, which again, kind of a strange one for a family, but it has things that it might offer. And we'll do a quick stakeholder map. think on this one, actually, yeah, let's just try it. If we don't like it, we can always delete it and try again or recreate it. All right. So once again, in a stakeholder map, and I'll call this a family map, just quickly rename it. So in our family map, what we have was each of a member of our family, the values of that member of the family. And again, these are values. Obviously, there's going to be deeper values than this that are shared. But these are values that tend to come from either their temperamental orientation or their personality typology or other things that are related to kind of their life situation, their interests, win condition. Um, I might change the language on that to, when do they feel really good and supported? For example, Sarah, seeing her family healthy, happy, and connected. David might look more at like problem solving success. Emma is looking for success in academics and sports and recognition and achievement. She's our Enneagram 3. Jack, looking for family harmony. He's our Enneagram 9. When is the breakdown going to occur for them? When are they really going to feel like they're losing? And that's all there. And then there are different engagement strategies for each. Okay. And then finally, let's do I'll nest another one here on a problem because this is all about conflict in this particular quadrant. And what I want to do is we'll do a decision scan. Decision scan is a way of summarizing a decision. On this one, I'm going to actually delete most of this context and I will give it um, another problem context, or not problem context, just a situational context. It's adjusting to life changes. We're going to say they're navigating a transition such as a move to a new home and changing schools. Know this one well as we lived nomadically all over the world and then got rerouted. Okay, here we are. And what I love about this particular framework is it does a nice job of providing this beautiful four quadrant kind of walkthrough on the context and the kind of decisions and things you might think about. So in the upper left, it's basically summarizing it. Faced with a major transition like moving to a new home, it's natural for family members to experience range of emotions, excitement, anxiety, stress. A good reminder, they're each going to process that differently. And a key question to think about, how can individual family members best manage their emotions? Here's some strategies to look at. Emphasize mindfulness and emotional regulation. Sarah could use her strengths to check in on everyone's feelings, while David could leverage his own by engaging in practical solutions and reassurances. And then there's second order effects. What are the second order effects from this? And it goes around each quadrant and basically describes that from the upper right, lower left, and lower right point of view. So super powerful. So you can see how in a matter of minutes, I've really created this very cool family map that you could really take however you want. You could focus it on practices. You could focus it on key questions you wanted to do. You could focus it on taking perspectives. I'll maybe add this last one here, um, which is one of my favorites, perspective taking. And I will just put this in here, take perspectives of each family member and see, and I actually want this in first person language there, put it into quadrants. Yeah, one of my favorite frameworks because it acts as such a good reminder to take us out of ourselves and see things through a different point of view. And look at this. This is great. So you're getting perspectives of each of the family members in all four quadrants. Emma, my achievements at school are evident through my high grades, leadership roles. I'm always on the move, participating in various clubs, and I thrive in competitive environments. Notice that's related to the upper right kind of behavioral quadrant that it's looking at. But in the lower left, Emma is talking about the culture. She's seen as a role model. Now, if you wanted to refract that a little bit or change it, like, hey, what are the struggles that my family might be facing, and get the perspectives to change based on that question, all you would have to do is recreate it and add that as your prompt. Tell me the perspectives of my family given this particular situation we're facing, or this set of problems that we've got. So in a lot of ways, I mean, it's almost too powerful because you have this set of choices that you have to make about how you want to think about a given context. So that is a very powerful walkthrough on how to think about an interpersonal situation with a family, and all the different ways, or a few of the many different ways that you could start to look at that. Hope that was helpful, and thanks for being here.